Good morning, my dear students. Today we are going to talk about our novel, Chapter 6, I Am in Love. Let's summarize Chapter 6 to understand it. As we know before, that David meets Uriah Heep and he invited him to have coffee with him. And they began to talk about Agnes. At this time, David told about Uriah's intention, or David knew about Uriah's intention to become Mr. Wakefield's partner, and he wanted to take over her father's business. During David's and Uriah's conversation, while they were talking together, Uriah tells David that without his assistance to Mr. Wakefield would have lost all his business. So he wanted to marry his daughter at this time. After this, David finds out that Uriah wants to marry Agnes, and thinking that being a partner to her father would make him or make her accept him as a husband. David decided not to tell Agnes about Uriah's plans so as not to make her worried. He didn't want her to be worried. So David is working in Mr. Spinlow's firm and he discovers more about Mr. Spinlow's life as his wife died and he lived with his daughter and his daughter's companion in a large country house. David is introduced to Dora. When he went to her house, he was introduced to Dora and he fell in love with her at once, immediately. David was very surprised because Dora's companion turns out to be Miss Marston. As we know before, that David didn't like this lady and this lady didn't like David. So, as a result, David is very worried that Miss Marston would blacken his name with the Spinlows, but his words fade away when Miss Marston tells him that they shouldn't speak about their past to anyone, as we know that their past wasn't good. After this, David meets his old friend. As we know, his friend was Tommy Truddles in London. And he began to tell him, or tell David, that he has rented a small room in a rented house in a poor part of London and that he is studying to become a lawyer. Tommy Truddles wanted to be a lawyer and that he has to do several jobs to pay for his studies. So he wanted to be a lawyer and he wants to have a job also to pay for all his studies, as we said. In addition, he is engaged to a lovely girl in Devon. David was very surprised to find that Tommy Truddles lives with the Coopers, and David was happy to see Mr. Cooper, whose appearance has changed. As we know, Mr. Cooper, he was the man who David stayed at his house. Okay? After this, Mr. Cooper tells David about his miserable life as nothing has turned up yet. For David, Mr. Cooper's or the Coopers haven't changed at all, but their quick change of mood surprised Tom Truddles. David advised Tommy Truddles not to lend Mr. Cooper any money as he has got a lot of debts. But unfortunately it was late. But Tommy Truddles has already rented them some money. So David, after a short time, David meets Steerforth again and he remembers Agnes' warning against Steerforth. But after this, he throws her advice away. Okay, and Steerforth tells David that Barker's illness has become worse. He began to tell him that Barker's illness becomes very worse, and David decides to go to Yarmouth. But unfortunately, Steerforth wanted to go with him. Steerforth asked David to think of him, of his best, no matter what happens between them later. David goes to Yarmouth and finds out that there was a problem between him and Emily. What was their problem? As we know before, that David knew that Ham is going to get married to Emily, but when he went there at this time, he finds that there is a problem between them. After this, Parkes died, and when he is buried in Plantreston churchyard, Parkes has left some money for his wife Peggotty that she won't have to work anymore. David learns from him that Emily has run away with Steerforth, his old friend, as we said that he was a bad friend. And he has left them a letter. She's saying that she won't come back again until Steerforth marries her and makes her a lady. So, Mr. Daniel Peggotty was very sad and was very angry, and he decided to go and look for this girl everywhere. That's all for our summary. Let's begin to talk about our questions. Number one, what was Uriah's plan? As we said that Uriah has a lot of plans. What was this plans? He wanted to become Mr. Wakefield's partner and to marry Agnes, his daughter. So, number two, according to Uriah, why did he want to become Mr. Wakefield's partner? We said that he wanted to be his partner. Why? Uriah told David that if he hadn't assisted Mr. Wakefield would have lost all his business. So this is the only thing which made him think about this. So he thought that he has the right to ask this thing about marriage. Number three, why was David surprised when he saw Miss Dora's companion? As we said, because when he turned it out, he found that her companion was Miss Murdstone. He got shocked. Number four, what did David and Miss Murdstone agree upon? When he see her, they agreed upon. What did they agree upon? They agreed that there was no need to talk about their past to anyone, as we know that there was a problem between them. After this, what did Tommy Truddles tell David that he was going to London? Tommy Truddles told him that because he was going to study to become a lawyer. To David's surprise, number six, to David's surprise, who did Tommy Truddles live with? David got very surprised when he knew that Tommy Truddles lives with the Micawbers. What news did Steerforth bring from Yarmouth? The news that Mr. Parkes' illness got much worse. So, as we know that David went to see what had happened there. When he went there, we knew that. What did Ham tell David about Emily? David told Emily, or he told David that Emily ran away with his old friend Steerforth and that she has left him a letter saying that she won't come back again until Mr. Steerforth married her and made her a lady. That are our questions. But let's talk about our comments. Number one, I'm too humble to expect such kindness. Can you comment? Yes. These words were said by Uriah Heep to David when David invited him to his house to have coffee together. Number two, please forgive me for running away and leaving you. It's a message. These words were said by Emily in her letter to Ham when she ran away with Steerforth and she asked them to forgive her. Number 11, I wish I had drowned him when I had the chance. As we know, these words were said by Mr. Bigotti, Daniel Bigotti, to Ham when he was talking about Steerforth when he knew that Emily had run away with him. So he got very angry and he wanted to find her. But I have already lent him, unfortunately. These words were said by Tommy Traddles to David when David advised him not to lend any money to Mr. Cooper because he has got a lot of debts. But unfortunately, as we know, that Mr. Cooper had taken some money from Tommy Traddles. That's all for chapter 6. Thank you and goodbye.